Hey everybody, it's Training Thursday, and today I am super excited to talk to my naturopath extraordinaire gal pal, who happens to have her own podcast, has an amazing online course specifically for adrenal fatigue. We have a little bit in common when it comes to our love of adrenal fatigue and helping peeps through those phases of their lives. And I'm super excited to talk about things that are impacting our profession. And one of the biggest ones is pricing. But I'd like to introduce Jules Galloway. Hey.
Woo! Hello, I'm so excited to be chatting with you today.
I'm so excited to have you here.
Oh, let's get stuck in.
Yeah. So pricing, right? It was,
Dun, dun, dun.
I know, money. Look out. One of the biggest things that I had a hurdle with, and we've talked about in passing before, but I'd love to share this conversation with our entire profession, is how do we, when we're first starting out, price ourselves? And then what happens when we start to realize, maybe we need to put the prices up? So let's start with, how much did you first charge when you first came out?
Oh my God, I'm old and I graduated in like 2006. So, oh my God, it must have been like $60 or
Me
something.
too. It was $60 an hour. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. $1 a minute seems cool. And my last job, I earned $30 an hour. So maybe that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And it was, yeah, like it was way more than I was working in the health food shop at the time. Like, the health food shop was giving me 22 or $24 an hour. And I was like, 60 sounds good. It's a nice round number, $1 a minute. Yep, let's go. But even that felt like a stretch at the time because I'd come from a retail sort of environment. Although you and I both know that I'd done some other jobs while I was at uni, which I'm happy to talk about. But let's just say that they made considerably more money.
Yeah.
But in terms of the industry standard, like I was used to being offered somewhere between 20 and $25 an hour. So yeah, it seems like a really good jump up.
Yeah. And at the time when you are asking for that money, it seems like a normal thing to do. But then when you start to look at what it costs you, whereas if you're an employee, it doesn't actually cost you anything. There isn't anything that you're expending on to be at work.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're running your own business, you start to go, oh, actually, I've got to pay my rent from that hour, and I've got to pay suppliers from that hour, and I've got to pay my utilities from that hour.
Yeah. And
When did you first notice that maybe the money wasn't quite what you thought?
well, pretty early on, although I had a little room out the back of my house when I started out. So that didn't cost me anything. But I also wanted to, like, because I was in Melbourne at the time. Melbourne's a really big place, and I was in the southeastern suburbs. So I thought I also wanted to diversify and get a room in a place that was on the other side of town. So I found a room in Fitzroy, and that's when I started to realise, oh, a third of what I make is going to go towards rent on this room, because she was really lovely and was only going to charge me like per client rather than per day or per half day, which is what a lot of people have to pay. So there wasn't too much pressure to be able to pay rent. It was like, it's only going to be a third of what I make, but it's a third of what you make. And then suddenly it's like, oh, and then at that time there was no kids, there was no Facebook, right? So there was no Facebook ads, there was no social media marketing, there was no SEO for your website, because I didn't have a website. Back then, like, we were literally printing out flyers, which cost money,
Yeah.
and then handing out the flyers and dropping the flyers and talking to people and doing letterbox drops, which takes time. And you suddenly realize you're not getting paid for your time, and it's costing you to produce these marketing materials. You get a batch of business cards done or some postcards to put in gift bags for an event, and that was the sort of grassroots marketing that I was doing at the time, and it added up really, really quickly, really quickly.
Yeah. And it's only that initial outlay when you're seeing the cash go in and out that you start to notice how much things are costing. But then it comes to things like tax and all these other things that are 30 cents out of the dollar. And you don't even realize that a third of your money's already gone.
Yep. Yep. And then you find out that when you do your tax and you're a business, you usually have to do it through an accountant, and that accountant charges you money, and everyone wants their little slice. Everything starts costing more money. You want to register your business, money. You want to register for this, money. You want to join that association, money. You want to pay your indemnity insurance, money. And so you at that time, I'm going to be really honest, I was terrible with money back then. Like, I'm good with money now, but I was green as, like, I didn't know what I was doing. I came from an industry where I was earning a lot of cash money into an industry where I suddenly was supposed to do everything. I was supposed to know about these profit and loss statements and tax and this and that. And I was like, I don't know, put money away for tax. I'll worry about that in June.
Yeah, totally.
So it was a very steep learning curve and a real culture shock for me.
Yeah, exactly the same for me. And I've talked about it before, having shoeboxes full of stuff, just literally shoeboxes and files full of, and not ordered whatsoever. And then having, multiple years of stuff and going to a bookkeeper because I didn't know I had to go to an accountant, and I knew they were more expensive than a bookkeeper. So I found a bookkeeper to
Ah,
try and sort this stuff out. And I had no idea what I was even looking at. And then to have to outlay for that, and then once you start to notice the numbers and start to notice how much is actually going out and how little is coming in, then there's this moment of, oh, I either need more clients or I need to put my prices up, right?
yep, yep. And look, I've got a, full disclosure. I ended up, leaving that element of my practice and going into corporate for a good few years while I was in Melbourne. So I stopped practicing one-on-one for a good few years, and I just let that slip away. And then it was great. I was working for someone else. I was like on, a really good pay packet, doing product development, training and development, research for vitamin companies, training staff, like leading sales teams. So I went into that field for a while, for a good few years, and I really enjoyed that. But it didn't end up working out for me. Turns out I'm not a great employee. I'm not good at working for someone else if I don't fully respect and believe in that person's ethics. And if I'm not 100% behind a business, I can't get excited and do my job well. Oops. So anyway, I moved to Byron 7 years ago, and it was only about sort of 6 years ago that I popped my head up and went, I think I'm going to go back into private practice. But I knew what not to do from that time in Melbourne. And that's when I decided to approach everything from a completely different angle. Social media had come up since then. Facebook had come up since then. I decided to start a blog. I had a website, all of that stuff. But this was just like private practice 2.0. It's like, I know what not to do. And this time I'm going to track my money. This time I know how to track my money. I know how to measure things. And you know what? You know this, right? What you measure grows faster.
Amazing. Where attention goes, energy flows.
I know, right? Who would have thought?
Where have we heard that before? Hold on a
Hmm.
second. I heard you homeopathy for a bit. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What do you know? Naturopathic bookkeeping.
Love it. Love it.
So yeah, so look, I'll be really honest to say the time I went to private practice in Melbourne, I sucked at all of these things. I've been there. I've done all the what not to do's. I've tried to have a dispensary. I didn't enjoy having to try and work out markups and GST and this and that. That sucked. I was hopeless with money, but yeah, I realized that if I was going to do this again and do it right, I had to learn to do the things that I was uncomfortable with. I hated numbers in columns. I used to say to people, I hate numbers in columns. I don't do numbers in columns. Can someone do my numbers in columns for me? And I would literally like handed spreadsheets to my husband and go, can you do this for me? Because I can't. I had like this, it was like a phobia, but I think it was more of a block.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when I was in early high school, I was in like the top 15 percentile or something for that. Do you remember that Westpac maths
I
competition?
remember that one, yeah, and I always got the distinctions. But but here's
Yeah,
the thing, like my husband, I would always palm off the spreadsheets. As soon as I saw a spreadsheet, I would get heart palpitations and then go,
yeah.
"Oh, this is a thing for my husband."
It's not a maths problem. It's a money block.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Totally
Yeah.
agreed.
I can add up. It turns out I can add up numbers. I'm not even shit at it, right? I can do it, right? We've calculators now on our phones everywhere we go. Like that stuff you can do it. But it was like, what was the thing in my mind that was stopping me from giving it the attention that I needed to give it? Like I needed to know the inner workings of my business
Yep.
before I could handle. I now have a bookkeeper and an accountant, right? That's
Yeah, I
so
know, right?
fancy. So fancy. I have both. Um, but like I now have them. But prior to handing everything over to them, I learned all the nuts and bolts and all the inner workings, because you can't hand it over to someone without knowing that, because otherwise you're placing a whole bunch of trust in someone else's hands and you're just like, you can't do that.
Yeah,
You
I
can't do
agree.
that.
And I mean, we've gone through years and years of study to figure out the entire human body, like the whole of the human body we've figured out. We've used our brains to figure that out, to answer all of those tests and exams and those questions about what what the human body does, but we can't figure out some numbers coming in and some numbers going out. We even figured out how much each meal every day is going to take out of each particular herb out of the herb mix,
Oh.
but can't figure out what's going to come in and out of it.
But yeah, but we don't we don't want to add up what we made and didn't make in April. Do you know what I mean?
Amazing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I get it. And it hits you. It hits you here. It's an emotional reaction that hits you in your body. That like it's a fear, and for everyone it'll be a different reason. Everyone's backstory will be different as to why they have these money blocks. It might be the way that your mum treated money. It might be the way that you lost a job once and had to hit rock bottom and you had no money. Or it might have been that you went from making lots of money to being in this industry and having everyone say that you're going to be poor forever because this is a sucky profession where no one makes money, which, by the way, is definitely not true. So everyone's money backstory and their reason for these blocks is going to be different. But at the end of the day, there's only one way through them, right? And that is through them, not around them.
Yep, leaning in.
Sad but true. Scary but true.
Totally. Couldn't agree more.
Yep.
So once you started leaning into your money box, because I know when I started leaning into mine and actually paying attention to where that money was coming in and paying attention, not just paying attention to where it was going out. So that was one of my biggest learnings was, okay, there's this much due and there's this much due. And I'd write a big freaking list of where everything was going out, and I wouldn't pay any attention to what was actually coming into my life, this abundance. I was just looking at the lack and
Yep.
magnifying the lack, and all I could see was lack. But as soon as I started like recording and checking in on my my bank balance about where money was coming in, things started shifting for me.
Yep. And you know what was important for me was celebrating when the money was coming in. Even if it was an ebook that I sold for $15, I would be like, yeah. I know
Totally.
it sounds really naff, but like if you stop and you celebrate that, that's huge. Like my husband and I, we had this running joke, and we still do it now. Even though it feels naff, but it also feels really good. And that is when I launched my first online program. It was super cheap. I forget what I charged for it now. It was like super cheap. But every time I sold one, every time I heard that little bing on PayPal, which
Yeah.
by the way is like the best sound ever.
It is, isn't it cool? It's
I know.
up there with somebody just booked in on your
Someone
booking
bought my
system.
thing. Someone thinks I'm good at this. But yeah, every time that turned up, we would high five, right?
Love
And one
it.
time I did a launch where literally our palms were getting sore, but even if like I sold 4 things in 10 minutes, that would be 4 high fives, not one big one, 4 high fives, because it was really important to celebrate every single sale that came in and appreciate every single sale that came in. I've got friends, Emma and Carla, the Merrymakers, who
Yeah.
when they sell a program, they literally get post-it note, right? And they write the person's name, say, okay, Jane Smith bought the program. Jane Smith goes on the post-it note and it goes on their wall. And by the end of their launch, they've just got a wall of post-it notes with names. And I
Yep.
think that's so cool, because then it's not a sale, it's a person.
Yeah. And so I've got a big piece of art. Oh, it's over there. I got this big piece of art, and I created it. It's just a big color in on a piece of, I was hanging out with my kids one afternoon, and I color in every time
You don't
somebody.
need to justify your art, mate. Come on.
It's not art.
It's not just art, it's art.
And I color in a chunk for every single person that joins. Yeah.
That's so good. Do you write their name in and then color over the top?
No, I give them a special color.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so cool. That's awesome. But yeah, it's symbolic. And every time you high five or color in the little chunk or put the name on the post-it note, it reminds you that someone bought your thing, someone trusts you with their money, someone's ready to be, in naturopathy, someone's ready to be healed or ready to get their health sorted. Like, someone has entrusted you to do that job with them, not for them, with them, whether it's a program or whether it's a consult or whatever it is. Someone has decided they like the cut of your jib and they're ready to work with you. And it's like, shit, yeah, I will work with you. Let's go. Totally. Let's do this thing.
Yep. And it just so happens the way that they've expressed that is through this energy that we call money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's cool, because then we can use that energy / money to pay for really cool things like mortgages, bills, Facebook advertising to reach more people, and things for ourselves. Nice things for ourselves.
One of the programs that I did early on, business-wise, she called it fun tokens. So people would just give you, X amount of fun tokens, and then you would have your fun tokens. And then what are you going to do with your fun tokens? Well, you can own more of your house, or you can go on a holiday, or you can do whatever you actually want with all of the fun that you just received, because somebody else is giving you fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's really interesting, because when did money become like this negative word? Because you went fun tokens. People usually go, no one ever goes money. They go money. Money. Yeah, because if you act too excited about it, people might think you're greedy or shallow, or that you're raising your prices to rip people off, not because you need to protect your energy or because you want to spend more time doing a better job for people. But yeah, if you act like you're too excited about money, people might think that you're in this for the wrong reasons.
Totally. Because you spending $30,000 worth of fun tokens and 4 years of your life.
I don't know if that got spent on fun, Tammy. I think that's how I got the first stage of adrenal fatigue. No, it was good. It's definitely good.
When it does come to the pricing side of things, right? How did you make the leap from $60 an hour, which, by the way, if you're charging $60 an hour in today's, my opinion, and it is my opinion, but it's based on value across our profession and self-worth that I see time and time again. It comes from real actual data about what it costs to run your business. Minimum, it has to be $100 an hour. And even then you are going to be struggling to pay the things that you need to pay. But it needs to be $100 an hour. So please, if you are charging less than that, I really want you to listen to the rest of this conversation and consider what you want to take on board from it. And, things that are making you feel a little bit challenged and uncomfortable, lean in.
Yep.
So tell me about your leap when it came to pricing, Jules.
Yep. And I think we need to preface this by doing that whole Marie Forleo thing where she says, now you're going to be listening to this and there's going to be a voice in your head that says, that doesn't apply to me. Because my situation's different because X, Y, and Z. But then I forget the exact word she uses, but she's like, you need to turn it around and say, how can this apply to me? How? Because,
Agreed.
Because someone might be like, Yeah, but you don't have a naturopath who's 2 doors up who's charging less, or you don't have a chemist warehouse on the corner who's selling bioceuticals for blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's
But you don't have 3 kids, but you don't have any kids, but you don't, and give all of your time to volunteering, but you don't have,
yeah.
interestingly enough, I've got 3 kids, and Jules gives her time for volunteering.
Yeah, but you know what? It's we all have that voice in our head that wants to be like that, and it's just about how you go about not listening to that voice. You can
And
go
and acknowledging that voice exists, because you can't shut it off. It's part of being human. It is our mind. So acknowledging that it exists and looking past it anyway and leaning in. So it's never going to get shut off. We all think, oh no, I'm just going to block that part of me. The more you block it, the more loud it's going to get. But
Yep.
acknowledging that it's there and having a conversation like this, like I have money blocks and I still have money blocks. My
I
God.
have money blocks. We all have money. I have imposter syndrome. Do you have imposter syndrome? Of course we have
Oh,
imposter syndrome.
no, of course not.
No, we're perfect. Newsflash, right? Well, spoiler alert, everybody watching. Um, Whatever you've got going on, you're always going to have it. It's about how you deal with it.
Yeah. And acknowledge it and lean in anyway. So not noticing what you can't do about it, but noticing what you can do about it. Yeah. So
Yep. All right.
pricing.
Pricing. Dun, dun, dun. Um, I was getting burned out. I was doing all the things for all the people and I realized I was always going to be one of those naturopaths who puts in the extra mile after hours and is doing all the research. And most of us do this, right? If not all of us. And I was giving it a lot of love and a lot of time and a lot of care and a lot of attention. And I'd hit a threshold where I didn't have any more time. I only have X amount of hours in the week. And I was using all of them days a week. And when I wasn't seeing clients, I was designing and running programs, posting on social media, building and running a website, building and running course platforms to put my online courses on, and trying to scrape money together to pay a virtual assistant so that I could offload some of those duties, and then trying to manage said virtual assistant because I knew that I was finding it hard to be a leader and express what I wanted them to do and train them properly. And the reason I couldn't express myself and train them properly and be a good leader is because I was too busy doing all the other things in the business. I literally had no time. I'm like, well, I would love to train my virtual assistant to do these things for me, but I've got no time to train them. So I'll just keep doing everything myself. Cue burnout.
Oh, that all sounds so familiar. And then wondering why things don't change.
Yeah, and you take on more clients because you think you need more money, and you do need more money. So you take on more clients, and then you get more tired. And I was really lucky, hey, because my best friend is a life coach. And when your best friend is a life coach, you're not allowed to get away with anything.
That's awesome.
And it just so happens that her superpower and her niche in the life coaching world is that she works with successful women and helps them to be more successful with less burnout. She's an ex-world, this friend of mine is an ex-world karate champion. So she knows what it's like to hit the absolute pinnacle of your career. And then she had chronic fatigue to the point where she was bedridden and unable to work or even go out. And so she knows what it's like to hit the absolute opposite end of the life spectrum and be completely put on the sidelines. And then she had to rebuild her life in a way that was sustainable. And now she coaches other women who are at a point where they need to find a way to work smarter. So when you got a mate like that who lives up at that time, she lived around the corner from me, so we were seeing a lot of each other.
Yeah.
When you got a mate like that, you're not really allowed to get away with burning yourself out because they notice.
Yeah, I totally hear you on that. I have a mate who happens to be Money mindset guru, and she just lives down the street. And
Yeah, I know this person in question. I know
you
this
don't.
person in question.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
wouldn't let you get away with much, I
Oh my
imagine.
goodness. And when we were catching up for our once a week, I wasn't letting her get away with not going for a bushwalk every week, and she wasn't letting me get away whatsoever every week. So, have you put your prices up yet? What's going on there? How many people have you seen this week? How tired are you? So, have you put your prices up yet?
Mm, mm. When are you putting your prices up? When are you going to start charging your worth? Yeah, our friends are very similar people.
Yeah.
So it's good to have someone like that in your corner. And I think people like that turn up and have these conversations when you're ready as well. And it just so happened I was in a mastermind with some other business women in non-related fields, not health fields. Oh, well, one was a yoga teacher, one was an architect, and one's a social media manager. And we had a 4-person mastermind going.
Mm.
And they were all telling me to put my prices up. My best friend was telling me to put my prices up. But meanwhile, my husband was like, what if no one buys things at the new price? And I'm like, shut up.
Or I had
No.
what if you're the most expensive person in our area from my husband?
Yeah, that just means that I'm doing well. Husbands are like the voice of reason because they have this gene, it's in the male gene somewhere. I don't know. There's something on that male chromosome that goes, you must not only be breadwinner, but you must be risk averse.
Yep.
Like if you're making a moderate amount of money now, maybe don't sacrifice that to make a good amount of money and not burn out. Like you're doing all right. Like, yeah, I know we can't afford a trip to America this year, but you can afford to go to Bali. That's good enough. You've got a nice life. You've got a mortgage. I know you're not going to pay it off any faster, but you've got a nice 3-bedroom house. You've got a mortgage. You've got this thing. You can, maybe this is your life. Like maybe this is you. It's good. And husband, bless his cotton socks. I love him so much, but yeah, husband's like, well, you're already doing better than a lot of other naturopaths.
Oh, I get that all the time too.
Because it's true. Because like there are a lot of naturopaths who aren't working or who are underemployed or are still getting 20 something dollars an hour at a health food shop. And I'll tell you what, the the catalyst for me going back into private practice is when I was up here and I'd burned out in corporate. That's another story for another day, but I had burned out in corporate naturopathy in Melbourne, and I came up here to rest. And I thought, while I rest and try and figure out what the hell I'm going to do with my life, I'll go and work at a health food shop because I know this, it's safe. I've done it before. It'll be a really good way to meet locals, and I need to make friends because I've just moved into state. This is good. So I approached my local health food shop who had a job going, and he was overjoyed because I had lots of experience and I'm confident and I've worked in retail and, I think I come across all right. And he's like, yeah, I'll give you a job. It's $17 an hour on your ABN, which means no work cover, no superannuation.
Oh, I did at the time. Yep, it doesn't
Yeah.
now, but yep.
Oh, doesn't it? Oh, there you go. $17 an hour on your ABN. This was 7 years ago, 6 years ago. And he's like, that's what I can offer you. And I said, that's insane. The last time I worked in health food retail was like several years ago, and I was already getting $24 an hour back then. Why can't you pay me that? I will make you money. You have a dispensary, I will make you money. I'm really good at selling more than 1 or 2 products to people. They'll walk out of here with exactly what they need. They'll be return customers. I will make you money. And he's like, well, if you do really well, maybe in 6 months I could put you up to $19 an hour. At which point I came home, dropped my bundle, right, and just said to James, that's it. I'm going back into business for myself because it can't get any worse than this. I'm not going to do this. And, remember what I'd said in the past about how I can't be motivated to make money for someone who I think's a douche?
Yeah.
He'd put himself immediately in that
In
category
the
just
douchebag
from that
category.
one conversation. I'm like,
Yeah.
you're a douche. Can't work for you.
Can't work for you. But I
Gonna
know
have to work for
somebody who might be
myself.
looking for somebody. Hold on. Me. And I'm not.
So yeah, that's how I got back in. But where are we going with that? Yeah. So then the pricing. So that's the example that my husband used when I was going into these conversations with him about putting my prices up, he's like, well, there's naturopaths up the road who are making $17 an hour. You're already doing better than them.
So that's just a little sideline. One of my favorite things about the Jim Rohn quote, you are the sum total of the 5 people you spend your most time with. Having a mastermind, having a group like the Entrepreneur Hub, having people around you who aren't your husband or clones of your husband or your family members to talk about business with, can elevate and give you the action and traction that you need, because you can't just hear that once. You need to hear it from 5 different angles. And if this is one of those conversations with people, you're hearing it from me, you're hearing it from Jules, there's only 3 more, and then it's time to put your prices up.
Yes. That's it. And it's a bit like the time that I was thinking of buying a Volkswagen Golf. Suddenly I was seeing Volkswagen Golfs everywhere. I was like, I've never noticed there were so many Volkswagen Golfs in my neighborhood. But it's because I was tuned into the Volkswagen Golf, right? And this is the same thing. Like, if you're tuning in to putting prices up or becoming more successful, the people who are going to give you the pointers and help you out and have those conversations with you, they're just going to appear. Yep. So it's like, oh, wow, why is suddenly everyone talking about putting their prices up? Why? Because you're ready to put your price up, okay? You just need a bit more support. So the universe is like, yeah, have 20 Volkswagen Golfs in a day. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, totally. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, you've talked about it, I've talked about it. This won't be the only time it pops up for people if these people are ready.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Yeah. So what did you put your prices up to?
I've put them up a couple of times.
I remember the first time, because this same wonderful, spectacular friend of mine, she put down the challenge, and I'm always up for a challenge. You know, I'm an activator and an implementer, and as soon as somebody goes, okay, can you? And it's like, gauntlet, yeah, on,
yeah.
She went, okay, double your prices. I was like, double?
Wait. When you say gauntlet, yeah, wait, no, can we negotiate? It hurts here.
Give me that. All right, I give it back now. Double?
Actually, is that the time? I think we've got somewhere to be. Yeah, I think I went, well, the first time I did the jump, I went, oh, God, isn't it bad? This is like, I've got pie rolls, so I can't quite remember things sometimes. I think I went 120 to 160 or 180.
Mm-hmm.
No, that doesn't sound right. I think I went 140 to 200. And the follow-ups might have gone under that. But I remember I got close to the 200s and I was like, that's where I'm going to stay forever, right? Yep. And then 12 months later, I found that and we're not allowed to say specializing. I wasn't specializing in something, but I had a special interest in a couple of specific health issues, and I was getting all of those people. And I was sinking a lot of money into furthering my education on those particular topics. And I was spending a lot of time reading everything I could get my hands on and doing mentoring. And I was paying the best mentors in the field that I could find to help me on this. And the time came when I needed to put my prices up to cover all that I was doing. Otherwise, I was going to start going backwards. But that's when, can we say the F word? That's when the head fuck started. And it was a huge jump. The next one went from around the 200 to 300 for an initial, right? So I now charge 300 for an initial, 220 for a follow-up, okay? And even now, it's been a year. It's been over a year. And even now, when I say it, like, it's like, why? Like, why?
Yeah, and then your brain does this thing where you're justifying how much time you spend on people's consults, and you're justifying all the things that it's that thing that clicks in, and you're like, oh yeah, that's there still.
Yeah. And imposter syndrome, total imposter syndrome. Who am I to charge that? And I'll tell you exactly why the 300 was an issue in my brain. And it's because I had a mentor who is like, oh, the best person I could find to help me at that time. Like she's written a book on some of these topics. She's amazing. She's 300 an hour,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So if she charges 300, then I surely need to charge less than that because I'm not as good as her. I'm never going to be as good as her because she is bloody amazing. Blah, blah, blah. Yes, right. That's what brain was saying.
Yep.
And then the other part of the brain was saying, they're not going to come. They're not going to pay it.
That was
You're
hubby.
going to go
There's
broke.
brain on one side, hubby's old voice on the other side. And then there's you going, I know I can help these people in this.
Yeah.
I can provide this amount of value or 10 times it, to be honest. Like the results
Mm.
that you get with adrenally fatigued clients are just off the Richter.
Yep. And the other thing I do is pyrrole disorder. And I mean, a lot of people don't even touch pyrrole disorder with barge pole. And, I've sunk so much research and so much time and so much energy into looking after people with pyrrole disorder. And I feel like, I feel confident that if someone comes to me, like I'm the right person to help them. I feel that, right? But it's still hard to translate that into, well, then I'll charge $300 for it.
Yeah, totally. I totally get that. And the other interesting thing that you brought up was around niching, if you want to call it that, or niching, or whatever you want to call it. But essentially finding your ideal target market. And the beauty of finding, because a lot of people at the beginning, and I sure did have hassles with, really niching and really finding my ideal client. Once you've actually found your ideal client, it becomes really simple to choose what you're actually either spending time or money on to actually study further into, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I'll go to every bloody thing and it costs a fortune for my CPE points. It's all I have to focus on is this particular.
Is this a good fit? Will this help me to serve my clients better? Who's my client? Will it help me to serve her or him better? That's it. Is this going to help me with my current people? Good. Then I'm going to it.
Yeah. And that's fascinating. Okay, so the next question that comes up, undoubtedly, everybody's in the background going, but how do you put your prices up? It's fine for you to say, oh, put your prices up, $300, sure thing. And they're all like, how am I going to double my prices?
Yeah.
How?
Okay, so there's always a classy way to do things, right? I'm not even that classy a person, right? But I like to think that I can do things in a classy way when it comes to my business, right? And you've got to let people know it's going to happen. You've got to make sure they know how much you put into this, right? I'm not talking, you don't have to justify what you do. You don't have to break it down and go, well, I do a lot of behind the scenes work. And, when I see you for an hour, that's actually like 3 hours work if you're a complex case of blah. You don't have to justify it, but you need to just, in a very classy way, let people know the care and attention that you put into the work and why you're the best person to help them. And that's not something you need to just do when you put your prices up, but you should be doing that all along.
It's an ongoing conversation about, and even on your social media, hey, I'm up working on this, that, or the other. Hey,
I'm at a seminar today.
I'm
Look,
at a seminar. Hey, this is me checking out pathology results. Hey, this is me doing all of this background work that no one gets to see outside of my clinic hours.
Yep. So you're building a story and you're laying the groundwork so that they know you're the best person to help them. And and when you see them, you make sure that they know they're getting the best care. Like I put in a lot of detail into the emails that I send people. I write little notes for myself to follow up with an email to ask someone how they're going if they're a complex case or if they've bought a program from me for $1,000. As soon as they buy that program, I put a note in my diary, 5 days later, that's the day I'm going to ring them on the phone just to pop by and see how they're going unexpectedly. Hey, just wondering how you're going. Is there anything you need help with? Yeah, thank you for buying the program. How are you feeling? So extra customer service, like
Yeah.
extra, over and above, all of that. Give them the
And,
care.
and being really clear about expectations. So once somebody has come to you for an initial consult and you're just prior to you going to the FBOSS machine or just prior to you, there's that notion of, okay, so this is what I'm going to do from here on in, not just here,
Mm.
this is what you have to do with your diet and with your lifestyle, and
Yeah.
this is what I
Yeah.
expect of you. It's, this is what I'm going to do. From here on in, I'm actually going to check up on this particular condition that you've got, these particular drugs that you have, check the
Yeah.
interactions of this, that, and the other.
Yep.
And
I
before,
will get back to you on this date at this. Yeah. I will
yeah,
get back to you by this time and let you know X, Y, and Z.
beautiful.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
So,
then the other little tweak there around the how is, okay, so how do you pick a number? Right. So for me, there's two sides of the how here. I'll go with the logical side. And I know we've had discussions before about the feeling side. So I'll get you to talk about the feeling side, but the logical side about picking a number. So for me to make the leap from going for $60 an hour to $120 an hour, and that was my first leap. And in the end, it was nearly triple that. So how I made that to begin with was I made 3 failed attempts. The first one was, okay, I can just do this because somebody said I could. $120. Boom. And I didn't I didn't logically see how much money that was actually going to be in my life, where those numbers were going, how much was going in or out or anything. And I also didn't feel it. I didn't feel worth $120 an hour at the time. And so I went with the logical side of things. Remember, I was a scientist way back at the beginning. So I was like, okay, I had to figure out how much it was costing me to stay open per hour.
ooh,
Right.
nice.
So
Nice.
I got all of the things that it costs, all of the outgoings for it, and I split them up into every week, and then I split them up into how many hours I was available for consults, even though I wasn't seeing everybody all that time. But essentially, for every hour that I was open, it was costing me $102.30, and I was charging $60 an hour.
Doesn't sound sustainable
No, bizarrely, but
to me.
until you go and look at the numbers, you don't actually know that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's the
so
old, when you run the program, rule number one about marketing for any program is know how much it's going to cost you to get that client.
yeah,
Like, how
totally.
much do you spend in Facebook advertising to get 100 people on your list? And out of that 100, what's your conversion rate? If 2.6% conversion rate of 100 people, like, you need to then break it down so that when you get someone in your program, it cost me $25.70 or
Yes.
$30 something. So it shouldn't be any different, even if it is a bricks and mortar business. Like, you should be able to break down how much it costs you to get a client.
Yep, totally. And so, realizing it cost me $102.30, I went, okay, I'll charge 105. Failed attempt number 2.
Yeah, you did. I hope this makes everyone who's watching this who feel better that, no one starts out perfect. I really don't.
And it continues, like, it gets just as much of a comedy of errors later on in your business life as well. There is always breakdown moments, there is always breakthrough moments.
Yep.
But after those 2 failed attempts, I then tried the third option, which is the one I'd love you to talk about, Jules, because I really negated, I really, because my science head was on at the time, I really I didn't put enough emphasis on the energetics of what it takes to request of somebody a certain amount of money and request of the universe that amount of energy and be okay in receiving that amount of energy. And we're talking full woo-woo here, but it works. So what did you figure out about all that? How did you figure out your numbers, essentially? How do you...
It was a feeling thing, not I am a kinesthetic kind of person a lot, and I just sat with stuff and I wanted it to feel slightly uncomfortable without feeling greedy and stupid. That's
Perfect.
pretty much it. So,
Slightly uncomfortable. So
yeah.
it's like kind of going into the water down at Tallows and and going, those waves are a little bit freaking out there over that side.
Yeah. Yep.
But if I come in just a little bit closer to the edge here, I could probably do these waves.
Yeah, but
It
don't
still
stay
affects
in
it.
the whitewash, because if you stay in the whitewash, you'll never learn to surf. Whitewash is a great place to learn, but at some point you got to get out back.
Best analogy ever.
That's it. But maybe don't go for the 6 foot overhead, steep
Yeah.
drops quite yet
So
on your
what that
time
looks
board.
like is, right, for me to go to you, hey, Jules, I think you should put your prices up to $500. And you go,
No,
yeah, you can see it's like 6 foot wave. New fucking wave.
no. And it's not scary like when you look at a 6 foot wave. It's just a straight, doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
And
And
not
then,
because I'm fear. Not if the fear is telling you it doesn't feel right, tell the fear to go away, and then have another sit with it.
yeah. And
Fear,
then,
fear
and then you
might
go
say
on the back
no.
end and you go, should I stay in the whitewash? Will I still be $120? And you go, no, actually, I don't want to do that.
Where am I going to be 5 years from now if I stay in the whitewash? Where? Still in the whitewash?
Cool.
No,
And then
no,
you go, okay,
no.
$400.
Mm,
Am I going to smash myself?
no.
No, right.
Mm. Also, I am putting myself out of reach of some of the people that I want to serve.
Beautiful. And then we go back and we go, okay, $200. We go,
Mm.
ah,
Yep.
well, I could
That
get on a board
feels
for that.
Well, that's it. That was the point, actually. That was the tipping point where I went, that feels doable, but will Jules 6 to 12 months from now feel motivated and energized and not burned out charging that? That was the other thing. It was like, that's where I feel comfortable now, but I need to make myself a little bit uncomfortable,
Yep.
because when you set your pricing, I don't think you should set pricing where you are. I think you need to set your pricing for where you want to be in a year from now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because then you get a feel for what it's like cellularly to be in your goal, to be
Yeah.
in, yeah.
Yep. And you know what? What you fear might happen. They might stop coming. They might not buy it. They might complain. I did have clients who wrote to me and said, I'm really sorry, but this is outside of what I can afford right now. And I was like, yeah, no worries. Like, can I help you find someone else locally who might be a good replacement? Like, again, handle it in a classy way,
Yeah.
but don't go back into that victim mode of, I shouldn't have done that. Well, I have gone back into that mode. But
Yeah, I've done that
once
before
again, my
too.
life coach friend didn't let me live there. I would visit that place. But she's like, no, you can't stay there. But yeah, and you might go backwards in order to move forwards. But just know it's a little shuffle backwards to move forwards.
Yeah, like
You're
pulling a
not going to
bow
keep going back.
before you
Yeah,
shoot the arrow. Yeah.
yeah, it's the cha-cha, right? So it's okay. Like, you might want to pick a time when it's okay to go backwards for a few months in order to go forwards. I raised my prices just before Christmas. Then I made no money in January. That's okay, because we're usually quiet in January anyway, right? So it was like taking a crap time of the year and making it a little bit more crap. And then I had a lot of time off over January, and that was great because the surf was really good. So win-win. But
Yep.
yeah, I got really scared. I got really worried. I thought I'd done the wrong thing. All the fear creeps in after you've done it as well, not just before. And that's okay. Don't let it change what you do.
Yeah, because you've chosen to be on a path. You've chosen to take that first step forward. You got to keep
Yep.
taking the steps forward.
Yep. And use that spare time. If your clients drop away a little bit, use that spare time to go out and show people why you're the best person for the job. Go and write a blog. Okay, you want to have a special interest in pyrroles? Go and write some blog posts on pyrroles. Do a Facebook Live on pyrroles. Do a webinar on pyrroles. Assert yourself as a leader in the field on pyrroles, right? So that when February rolls around and the kids are all back at school and people want to go to a naturopath and they type in naturopath pyrrole disorder into Google, like 5 of your links come up.
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
that's when they look at the price and they go, $300, that's a stretch. But clearly she knows a lot about pie rolls. I feel comfortable going to this practitioner. This is the person to help me.
Yep. Totally.
Cool. You've used that time to position yourself in your niche, in the
And you
absolute
get
box seat.
really committed people who are even closer to what you can do. Whereas when you were that GB kind of, there was random people coming that had nothing to do with pie rolls. Yeah.
That's right. And it's, if you don't have a niche, we'll find you another reason to raise your prices. It's cool. We'll workshop that. I'm sure we can come up with something, can't we, mate?
Totally. But raising your prices is really important for all sorts of reasons. Having a sustainable business, having a life that you love, doing the things that you got into this business for in the first place. But one of the ones that I am most in admiration of Jules for, and one of the things that I love to do as well, is be able to give back. So people who are most resistant in our profession to raising their prices is because, but I'm in a low socioeconomic area and I only want to help these people. But in doing so, they end up not being able to run a business. They're actually running a hobby um, to their own detriment, financially and physically. And the beauty of raising your prices enough that you can then take that money and go and volunteer and go and do, even if it happens to be in your area 1 day a week, or what Jules has done, it's gone overseas multiple times in a year and given back in ways that you just couldn't do unless you have your prices raised, right?
Exactly. And the light bulb moment, or the moment where I knew that I had to raise my prices, this was the first time, is when I was volunteering in Greece. And I went over, I crowdfunded my way there. I volunteered for a couple of weeks as as a nutrition slash naturopath team. We had people over in Greece, and I was actually sharing a room with another naturopath who was amazing, amazing practitioner. I really love and admire her, and we're still good mates. But we were talking about pricing, and we were talking about how busy we were and how many clients we saw and whatever. And she was talking about how many people she saw a week and how much she charges. And then I realized that I could see half the amount of people. And I was like, oh, and then I could go to these places and help people more often. So we were working in the refugee camps in Greece. I mean, that's once in a lifetime opportunity for most. But now that actually led to an offer to be the nutrition coordinator for a project in Fiji that I do through Involvement Volunteers International. So the people I went to Fiji with then approached me to run Fiji for them, basically. And now in the past 12 months, I've been over to Fiji 4 times. Yes, my poor husband gets neglected. So I was missing like 8 weeks of the last, 2 months out of the last 12. But he understands. He knew. I always said, I'm going to get my business to a point where I can then afford to travel, but I'm going to work on the business first. And I did. I slaved away and I worked away and I broke myself and gave myself more adrenal fatigue, creating a program for adrenal fatigue. But I got there. Maybe don't do it that way. But he knew that when I got to a position where financially I would give back. And because I've always wanted to, because when I was 16, I was homeless. And I had a very, very, very rough time of it for a few years, like very rough time. And I got to a point where I had to receive a handout from a charity in Melbourne. I think I was 16 and a half years old when I was receiving money from the Smith family to pay my electricity bills, because my electricity was going to get cut off in my house. And at that moment, I decided that one day I was going to pay it back, right? And maybe not to give them back their money, but to somehow pay it forward or to do something as a give back, but only once I got my shit together, right? And that getting the shit together took until I was 40, right? But once I got my shit together, I got it together big time. And now, instead of just giving the Smith family back the small amount of money that they gave me, I'm going to Fiji 4 times a year. Now we're looking at doing Vanuatu, as you know. We're looking at doing Samoa. They want to send me to Bali. And that takes time away from my business, right? That does. And I had to then go, right, well, this business model has to sustain 8 weeks of the year when I'm not going to be at my desk and I'm not going to be seeing clients. And I'm going to have to pay a virtual assistant to help run my programs while I'm away, because I can't be expected to be everything to everyone and run everything. And what can I palm off, right? And so now that's where it's at. It's now at a point where whenever I think about, oh my God, who am I to charge $300 for this consult or $220 for a follow-up? I just go, that's a few more days I can spend in Fiji.
Yeah, I'm a person
That's,
that's changing the world in a way that I couldn't before. And yeah,
yeah, it's
amazing.
allowing me to do other things. And yeah, it's a little bit Robin Hoodish. But you know what? My clients don't mind. They know. They know exactly what I do. And you know what? Those clients that I take, $300 from for an initial and $220 for a follow-up, when I ask people for money to help out in Fiji, like if we wanted to raise money to buy computers for a primary school, or we wanted to raise money to buy air conditioning for a daycare centre in Greece where the refugees were hanging out, and I would do crowdfunding, do you know those clients are the ones who kick in $100, $200
Yeah.
for the crowdfunding as well, because they love what we do over there and they respect what we do. So they know that by paying me a decent amount of money, it allows me to go and do stuff like that too. And no one's ever questioned, why do you charge that much? No one.
Yeah, that's the other interesting thing. It's so rare. Like, it's so rare. They'll either say, yes, it's for me, or no, it's not for me, not why. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it?
The only people, and this is really awful, but the only people I've ever seen questioning what naturopaths charge are other naturopaths.
Hmm.
Do not do that.
Yeah. And we're not in it for that. It's not about, God, it's not about that. There are so many. This is that abundance mindset thing. The more you can focus on how many people are out there that need our help, either here or overseas, how many people are getting chronically unwell, it's just getting bigger and bigger all the time. And then how much money there actually is on the planet gets bigger and bigger every time. And it's just where that energy comes in and out of your life. And thank you so much for such an epic conversation, Jules. I hope that anybody who's listening, that this is a conversation you'll truly consider, because the impact that you can make on the planet, like the whole planet, by example, Jules is living it, is huge. And if you can step up and step out and be in that receiving mode and be able to be in a space and be reminded that what you do is worth it, what you do with your time, and it's worth an actual financial reward. And then what you do with that reward is totally up to you. For Jules, she realized at that 16 and a half that that's what she wanted to do. For you, it might be your family. For you, it might be animals, it might be travel, it might be all sorts of different things for you, but you can't get that until you can step up and say, yes, this what I do is valuable.
And you don't have to use that extra time and money that you've created and freedom. You don't have to use that going and saving the world, right? You don't have to. Like, I just chose to do that because I had a bee in my bonnet since I was 16. Plus, I don't have kids, right? Plus, I have a travel bug. So it's perfect for me. But you can use that time and energy and money that you've created to just be the best mum that you can be, or to be the best partner that you can be, or to be the best dog mum and adopt more dogs than you can be. Or, like, I'm just going to throw it out there. I know this is radical, but you could just use it to nurture yourself.
Yes. Oh, imagine if we had a whole bunch of practitioners around the world actually looking after themselves.
Because you know what? Then you won't burn out. Then you can help more people in the long run. Job done.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much for an epic conversation, Jules. Just the same as what we do every time in these conversations to consider and Training Thursday is what is one actionable step that you can take from what you've heard today. And we've had lots of little gold nuggets. It doesn't necessarily have to be about pricing. It could be around helping people. It could be around, changing your job, getting a sandwich job for a little while, working in corporate, but what did you get out of it that you can take action on today that will shift you and therefore our entire profession forward? So thank you guys. Thank you, Jules. Bye. Epic. Thank you guys so much. I'll talk to you guys later.